Welcome, friends. Whether you're out on a walk, running errands, or relaxing at home, it's wonderful to connect with you. Joining us today is Mandi Pratt. After a life altering personal crisis that forced Mandy to trust her intuition and reclaim her sense of safety, Mandy transformed a profound plot twist into a framework for self leadership and resilience. Today, she helps individuals and organizations understand how stress and survival responses impact decision making, boundaries, and well being. Mandy, welcome to Phoenix and Flame.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and hello to everybody who's
This is
listening.
fantastic. This is going to be so much fun. And also, guys, you need to know that Mandy is also a Mic Drop Academy graduate, as am I. And I've had several Mic Drop Academy graduates on my podcast because it's just such a wonderful, lovely sisterhood of women that are high performers, professionals with a heart for people, with a heart for service. And so it's just lovely to have that connection together and to know that we both
Mhm,
kind of went through that together. So, Mandy, that
yeah.
is a lot. I mean, you have been through a lot and you've transformed it into something wonderful. So, what I'd like to know, and you can start wherever you would like, if you want to start kind of what you're doing now and weave back, or if you'd like to just kind of start at the beginning and say, this is kind of what my beginning stages were, and this is kind of what I built from that,
Mhm,
whatever's most comfortable for you. And we'll just kind
right.
of weave our way around.
Yeah, let's start backwards so we can start with the past and
Uh,
move to the
That
future.
sounds
How's that sound?
wonderful.
Cool. Yeah, I know that you were asking, in your podcast, you share a lot about, what absolutely burned you to the ground and made you start over. And for me, that was about 20 plus years ago. And I had left an abusive spouse. I had a toddler. So it was quite tricky, as it would be. So we left. But the kicker was a year after, I came home to the house that we were staying at only to find a business card tucked into the door jamb. And it said coroner's unit, robbery unit, and it had a handwritten note, "Call me, please." And I was like, "Oh," like my heart dropped into my stomach. I knew who it was about. It was about my ex, but I didn't know like which topic are we talking about, like coroner
Mm.
robbery, And so I immediately went into the house and called the number. So there I sat by myself waiting to hear what was on the other line, who are you and what the crap is going on, right? And so um he introduced himself as an FBI agent. And by the way, ma'am, are you aware that we've been searching for I hope he's your soon to be ex-husband because we've been searching for him for the past 6 to 9 months for bank robbery. And he could tell I was, like, completely dumbfounded because I was silent, like, "What? Like, am I in a nightmare right
It's
now?" Like, What?" I had no idea. And so I was, just listening to him, and then he said, "We don't need your corroboration, but can I come talk to you house tomorrow morning?" And I was like, "Yes, just come over. Let me know what's going on." And so I still remember him standing there at the door with his briefcase, and he came in and sat down at the kitchen table, and there he was with all the photos from the banks, and in fact, there was my ex, like, in the hat that we would share on trips to Mexico and the shirt that I bought her for Father's Day, like, it was definitely him, and so the agent went on to list out all the different dates and, times and locations of each of the banks, and it was so many that I couldn't, like, keep up, and I was just trying to connect to, like, my head to my I was just thinking by writing it out, "Is this gonna make sense
mhm.
somehow?" Like, and so it clicked, and I realized, "Oh my gosh, like, these are locations and dates and times after he had had a supervised visit with our son." And so, like, I talk a lot about power and control and that whole dynamic. And so I know now that that was him trying to grasp at like control and power. And he had unfortunately developed a gambling problem. So that's kind of where all that came about. But anyway, that day was the day I would say where everything definitely burned to the ground. I thought it was already burned to the ground, but it burned even more. So I was just like, okay, so now I'm not just dealing with post separation abuse from this person. I am now dealing with a criminal element. And like, they also weren't sure if he was working with somebody else or like, did he owe people money? What? So I'm just in this whirlwind of crap, you know? And so I had to figure out, and I had this toddler. So I'm a single mom trying to raise this kid by myself and get out of that cycle of abuse and heal
Mhm.
from that. But there's all kinds of stuff still happening, you know? And so that was so,
And
so
life just
difficult.
goes on. I've talked to people when they're and I'm
Yeah.
curious about 2 things. One, that moment when you feel like almost like the earth just kinda tilts on its axis a little bit, where you just feel like,
Yeah.
"What is happening right now?" Almost like your mind can't even really process what it's like
Exactly.
I hear the words, but I
Yeah,
don't,
exactly.
and the
I don't comprehend. I
exactly,
can't
yes,
process.
and
Yeah.
also what it's like to have to life goes on, the sun comes up the next day and it just keeps going and going, and you just have to keep buying the food and brushing the teeth
Yeah.
and fixing the
Yeah.
mac and
Exactly.
cheese despite all these
Yeah.
other, I mean, what was that like
Yeah.
for you in that particular phase?
It was horrible. And a lot of people didn't even get what I was going through because this person was very charming and
Mhm,
manipulative, right? So when I stepped away and said I was divorcing this person and I was leaving and all these things, people were like, "Wait, what? What?" And so it was really only a couple of people who had gone through something similar who got
mhm.
it and who I felt like could help me like get through that, you know? So it was really, really difficult. And like I mentioned, I was also trying to raise a, a little kid. And so, I had to go into like survival mode, because like you said, I had to get up out of bed every morning. I didn't have the luxury of staying in bed and feeling sad or mad or I don't know, I just had to keep going because this little one is awake and he needs
Yeah.
food and like he can't help himself. So
Pro and con, I would imagine. I mean, you
yeah,
didn't really
right.
have a lot
Yeah.
of time for emotional processing like you're saying, but at the same time, you didn't have a lot of time for emotional processing. Pro
Yeah, right. It was
pro and
like just
con.
go, go,
Yeah,
move.
and I'm wondering at
Yeah.
that time if you would share maybe who were some of your support people? Because I know and I've walked
Mhm.
a path of my own where people that are outside the immediate
Mhm.
circle, they don't
Mhm.
get it. They don't understand. They frequently
No.
don't approve. They don't accept it,
Right.
and they don't understand. And so
Yeah.
then it's kind of leaves you without validation, without support. So for
Right.
you,
Right.
did you have anybody? Did you have some people that were there?
Mhm. Yeah, it was tricky because this was such a long time ago, so they didn't have all this wonderful
Mhm.
resources that they have out there now. Um So I remember, like, going online and being like, "Help," like, narcissistic abuse survivor, like, "Help," like, what just looking up different things, and, like, I remember going to our local women's shelter too, and they they weren't they couldn't really help me that much because I didn't need to live there, and I was, like, you know, still making a living, but not very much, but not enough to, like, be in poverty, but not enough to really
Oh,
help myself, so I was, like, stuck in this middle ground, and it was really hard. So that at that point was when I really learned that I need to trust my own
mhm.
intuition and I really needed to lead myself. So I mentioned like that plot twist of, whoa, okay, wow, my life just got blown apart even more than I thought it was. So now I it's time for me to pick up the pieces and start over and do the best I can with what I have. So it was figuring out what worked for me. So like I mentioned, I just had just a couple friends who had been through something similar who got it. So talking with them and then finding a good counselor, that was helpful too. But for me, like it wasn't just talk therapy I needed because I had complex
Mhm.
PTSD because I had gone through all of that horrible stuff. And then I did have people not validate me. And it was even institutional betrayal where like the police would show up and say stupid stuff like, "Oh, well, ma'am, your issue's not very big at all. Like he's got bigger issues right now." So. And not to say all the police were like that. Some were great, some were like that. Just not being educated on how to handle
Mhm.
that. And then, just a bunch of other things like that, like a lawyer who leaked my address, different things I just went through. And so it was quite traumatic, so it took a long time, and for me, it wasn't just talk therapy. For some people that works, and that's great, but I had to also move my body and, spend a lot of time outside and figure out what
Yeah,
worked for me, you
exactly.
know? So, it was a lot of trial and error, so that was what I found helpful at that time, and then something that a lot of people don't think about is pets are pets, right? So I had a cat that I was able to leave with. So when I left, I packed up my cat and my kid. And luckily, we had somewhere to go. They do have great resources now for people with pets to be able to escape
Mhm.
with their pet. But um, for me, I was very lucky I had somewhere to go. But, leaning into our pets also was for me, I had a cat who was my everything, and those are you know, we think, yes, we're close with our family, but we have these animals, these pets that live with us, and they're with us in our routine every single day, right? And, just, simple things like that, were helpful
I
as well.
love that so much. So I'm wondering too, I heard you mention intuition, and I have been in
Mhm.
conversations with people where women in particular, not always, but the large majority, where they've been in these relationships with people with narcissistic patterns, narcissistic tendencies, and it really erodes away at your sense of self, and you second guess yourself all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm
Yep.
wondering, as I'm listening to you describe your experience, how long was it before you felt more confident in your own intuition and trusting it and believing it? And what helped you
Mhm.
to be able to lean into that and to really feel like it's supporting you versus second guessing yourself?
Right, right. I that is really, really important. I love those questions, and that's something that I go out and speak about a lot because I feel like that's really at the heart of things, right? Because, like, even with unhealthy relationships, like, a lot of times we will get those, like, you know, our intuition, like, alarm bells going off, like, "Hey, hey," like, pay attention," right? But a lot of times we rationalize it,
Yes.
and a lot of that is just systemic programming, right? Because, like, especially as women, we're taught to just go with the
Mhm.
flow, be nice all the time, and, like, um and so I talk a lot about that. I have a quiz on my website to help people through that and then a challenge. A couple different steps that I like to go through to help us start to really pay attention to our intuition and really lean in on that. Like the first step is pausing. Like we go through
Mhm.
life so
Yeah.
fast, and how many times have we actually paused and paid attention to like, what is my intuition really trying to tell me here? Because I'm just moving at the speed of light, right? And I'm not paying attention. And a lot of times, like, when do we get the best ideas or when do we really start to think things through? It's like when we're going out for a walk or maybe we're in the shower, right? Because we're not multitasking, right? We're taking a
Yeah.
pause. Because we're forced to like take a pause. And that's when you start to relax and, like, really start to process things, and, that's just, like, the first step, uh, of helping ourselves, because how many times do we say, like, "Gee, I wish I really didn't listen to my intuition," and, you know, we do the opposite, like, "God, I wish I would have listened to my intuition, like, I had this feeling," right?
That's it, and I wanna weave in too here about boundaries because as I'm listening to you describe this, my mind is laying out the scenario in my head about so often we want to say no to whatever. No, I don't want to be in this relationship. No, I don't want to be in this conversation. No, I don't want to go to that
Mhm.
restaurant. We want to say a
Right.
no, but there's a multitude of reasons, and some of which you mentioned a few moments ago, of why
Mhm.
we don't just
Right.
say our no. Which is our
Right. Yeah.
intuitive, we're just intuitively like, "I this doesn't feel right. I want to say no," but then we don't. And
Yeah.
it's like, number 1,
Exactly.
why don't we? And number 2, what happens when we
Right.
don't?
Right, right. Yeah. And I think too, like for a lot of people who have gone through abuse and stuff, it was kind of your brain was so used to doing what helps you survive,
Mhm.
right? So it was, yes, I feel like this is dangerous, but I feel like I have to because if I make too much noise, I'm going to be abused or something, right? And so a lot of that too is that patterning. And so it's just, taking baby steps to get out of that after you've, come out of that. And you asked how long it took me. Geez, I don't even know. It took longer than I thought, right? Like I remember even asking my counselor, like, how long till I feel better, And of course they're like, I can't give you a timeline, you know? But it's just moving in those baby steps, right? And with curiosity. So moving through, oh, my intuition is telling me that, maybe this relationship is feeling a little off. And like, what is my body telling me? Like, why is my stomach so tight? Like when I know I have to go see this person.
Ah.
So I think it's actually a good combination of intuition and boundaries,
Mhm.
right? So it's like paying attention to what our intuition is telling us, but also, minding those boundaries. And for a lot of us who have gone through abuse, it's hard for us at first to speak up for ourselves, right? But I feel like if we can frame it, kind of reframe it like okay, like with self compassion. Okay, Amanda, you've just been through a story that was actually on the news twice. So remember that. Remember you had the FBI at your door. Remember how hard this has been, right? And so give yourself some grace and take your time, get the help that you need, and just test that out. Don't feel like you have to go to somebody who feels like they could be safe and just blab it all out, right? You can do a little
Yes,
test
love it.
first and make sure that that goes okay and that they're like, you feel safe with them, right? And that they validate you. That's so important. So important. I just had a guest on my podcast actually um, who is a forensic psychologist, and she was talking about how by just simply validating somebody when they come to you and they disclose, it takes away the chance of complex PTSD by 3 times.
Mm.
So it's so important to validate, even if a lot of us don't know how to help somebody like that, right? But if you just validate, man, that sounds so hard. And I am so sorry that you're going through that. You know, I
That's
hear
it,
you.
period, not comma, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
but just
right.
period. That
Yeah,
that sounds awful. That's period.
yeah, just
Uh-huh.
validating, right, and they'll keep talking or not, like, just sitting there with them and being present and validating that is so, so helpful, and, like, a lot of times I didn't get that, and so I got, "Wait, are you sure? Like, he seems like such a nice guy," like, that kinda stuff, and, like, I'm already second guessing myself, don't make me second guess myself even
Mhm.
more, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you brought up the topic of safe people. That's a really, really big deal, especially when you're coming out of a complex PTSD scenario and you're not used to being able to set
Yeah,
boundaries, you're not used to trusting your
right,
intuition, you're used to second guessing
right.
yourself, and then you're reaching out to
Mhm.
people and they're invalidating what you're saying,
Yep,
and so what I'm hearing you say is really kind of vetting individuals once you're kinda coming out of that abusive scenario. Vet people. Are they going to
Yeah,
listen?
exactly.
Are they gonna hold your confidence? Are they going to validate, like
Right.
you said? That's
Right.
huge.
Are they gonna cause more Yeah, you don't want them to cause more drama
Mhm.
either.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So then you were able to take your experience and transform it. We talk about the phoenix rising from the ash. You've done such a beautiful job of explaining the flame that just burnt you down to the ground and what it felt like to just be sitting in that pile of ash, and just trying to find your way out. But when we're in that ash, and there might be some
Right.
listeners right now who are sitting in a pile of ash burnt to the ground and they don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. They do because we don't know what the future holds. They don't know what the end of the story is going to be, and I that's why one of the reasons why I love to talk to my guests and find out when you were sitting in that pile of ash, what was it that
Mhm.
helped you to again rise like a phoenix from
Mhm.
that, and you were able to turn your experience, turn the trauma into something amazing to help other people. So help us understand how you were able to do that and what that looks like.
Mhm. Right. Thank you. Yeah, I remember thinking like, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Like, what's going on? Like, is this ever gonna be better? Because honestly, it felt like no. Because I had a lot of I mentioned post-separation abuse. So when people have stuff like that, like not even post-separation abuse, but just like this trial that seems to last forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever,
Mhm.
and you've done your best to get yourself out of that situation and try to heal and get better, it's just like, good God, like, is this ever gonna stop, And so I remember just thinking, is there light at the end of the tunnel? And now I can say, oh, yes, like, I love my life now, but I couldn't see that back then. So it's just literally like one tiny micro step, moving forward. And yes, like I took 4 steps forward, but 2 back. But then the next day I take 2 forward and 1 back, so I'm still moving. So just and having that hope of knowing that before I had a happy life, you know? And so feeling like maybe that could be possible again, like there's no way this can continue on like this and be this bad for forever, right? And then also having a little one helped me too because um I was bound and determined to make a new life for us so this kid would grow up, in a healthy environment and not continue that cycle of abuse. So I was just kind of like dug my heel in the dirt and was like, like we're not doing that. So maybe a bit of like stubbornness and hope, and hopefully that
It
answers your
does, it
question.
does, it does, and so you have taken this because, and I've got some notes here that you shared with me earlier. It's like one of the things you said was that you learned how to move from fight or flight into clarity, confidence, and inner stability. I know there are so many listeners right now that are thinking, I would love that. I would love to have clarity. I would love to have confidence. I would love to have inner stability. So, what
Right.
were some of the things that you experienced and how to teach others how to transform where they can have more clarity, confidence, and inner stability in their life?
Right. Well, first of all, Dana, I have to say, like, that didn't happen right off the bat. Like, it's been 20 years, like I mentioned, and it's taken that whole time. Like, I didn't even really start talking about this and teaching others until like 2020 ish. So it took a long time. Um, and just, I'm sorry, what else did
Well,
you
we were
say?
talking about moving from fight or flight into
Yes.
because and I think you brought up that I wanna talk about that a minute, and you also made a comment about the length of time, and I think that's important to say too. So the first thing is
Yeah.
when we're in fight or flight mode, like you said earlier in the podcast, we're just trying to fucking survive. Sorry to for but I mean, we're just
Exactly.
trying to survive. And you
Yeah.
when you're just trying to
Yeah.
survive and be alive the next day, you can't think about
Yes.
clarity. You can't think about confidence or inner
No.
stability, right? None of that
No.
matters. You're just trying to live.
No.
And so you were
Yeah.
able to move from that fight or flight mentality. And also I love the fact that you
Yes.
pointed out that this was years in the making because I want my listeners to know if when they're on this journey, don't feel like there's something wrong with you. If you've been struggling
Yeah.
for 2, 3, 5 years and you haven't reached
Right.
that rainbow, you haven't reached that place where
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
it's okay as long as you keep heading in the right direction. So for you, what
Yes.
was that like and what are some like maybe some insights or epiphanies you learned along the way that you might want to share with some
Yeah.
listeners that might be way way back on the journey still?
Sure. Right. Um, I would love to point out too that, when you're going through that tough time for so long, it really affects your body. And so I now am dealing with so many health issues, that came because finally I could relax, right? So I am now 20 years out of that. I'm remarried. My son is grown, doing well, and so I could finally feel safe. What does your body do when it feels safe? It goes, ah, oh my gosh, right? And so when that happens and your body goes, oh, okay, I can finally relax. So now I'm gonna,
Unpack all the
there's
stuff.
nothing left of my adrenals, and going through menopause early and all these different things, right? And so your body just breaks down after that if you don't take care. And so for so long, I was stuck in that fight or flight because I had to be. My story is freaking gnarly. I had to be to survive that. But my brain was so used to that, I had to be like, "Okay, Mandy, like, you don't have to keep living that way. You don't have to keep hustle, 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 and your nervous system can't take that anymore. You can't live like that." And so it was just like a hello moment, like, you know, you need to, get the help you need and do what you need to do. So you need to take that pause, right? You need to take that time to care for yourself and not just like hot bubble baths and lighting a candle. Yes, that's nice. But I mean, getting real therapy and really spending that time outside that I need and being present. So I'm not always like, I make it a purpose to like not look at my phone while I'm out for a walk the whole time. So yeah, I'll check in what time it is or does somebody text me, whatever. But I'm being present out there and I'm noticing, five things I see, five things I hear, five things I feel, and going through that grounding
Mhm.
exercise um, to help myself because, you know, I still have bad days, where I'm just like, good Lord, like, I just want to go to sleep right now. And I have 10 million things to do. But guess what? They can't all get done, but I can do some of them. And remember, I can ask for help.
That's
Right.
it, that's it. I love the pause, and you brought that up earlier, and I meant to mention something about it, and I got just engrossed in the other things that you were saying. I think sometimes we feel like we're falling apart when really it would be fantastic if we could reframe it as we're not falling apart, we're pausing.
Yeah. We're letting ourselves catch up.
Yes.
Right.
You're not so listeners, so
Yeah.
if you're having a day and you think you just plop down and you think you're losing it and you're falling apart, no, you're not. You're pausing.
Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
pause.
And like I mentioned, and I mentioned too, like a lot of times your body isn't used to rest, so it doesn't feel
Mm.
safe. So it's uncomfortable, but reminding yourself, hey, like I've been through a lot. I need some rest. And sometimes that's scary because then it's like, oh, then I'm forced to like face all my feelings, right? So that's when we want to get help,
Mhm.
right? So maybe it's not feasible for somebody to get counseling. So maybe can you, for myself, I use music a lot. So I have like the Pandora app, right? And so I go with what I need that day. So maybe I need the Zen station or whatever, just hearing the ocean waves, right? Or hearing the bird song, different things like that. Talking with a friend, right? A safe friend that you know.
Mhm.
So it's finding what works for you. And often when I go out and speak, I have a slide that I share that shares my silly little happy list, what I call my happy list. So when I had my counselor back then and going through all of the craziness, she told me, "Hey, I think what would be really helpful for you would be to make yourself like a menu, so like a happy list of things that help you feel better and things that when you're not feeling well, you can just look at that list and be like, "Hey, okay, I can take this time to, jump on the phone with a friend," or whatever might be the case. So, yeah, that is super helpful. So I always encourage other people to make like a menu for themselves. So when that happens, they don't need to think about, because
Mm.
during that time, you can't think about what helps yourself. You have to just know there's a list right here, and I can go pick something from my list. That's super helpful.
That is fantastic. I never heard of that idea before. That is really just to have it right on hand. It's not unlike, you know, coping strategies. I lots of times with my clients and patients, we talk about tools in their tool belt,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just to add tools in the tool belt so that they're hanging there. You might not need them, but
Right.
when you need them, it's nice to know they're right there for you to grab easily to pull out. And so
Exactly. Yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
I keep them on my phone. You know how you have like a notes app in your phone?
Yes. Yeah.
So I just keep it there, and that way, your phone's usually with you, so I can just look at that and be like, "Okay, which one are we gonna choose today?" So,
Oh, wow. That is absolutely true. Well, I would love to talk longer. I think we have more we could share. And maybe when I guest on your podcast, we can kind
yeah,
of get more stuff going. But I want to make
exactly.
sure, Mandy, that my listeners, the ones that want to get more of you, they want to know more about you, they want to possibly connect with you, avail themselves of your wisdom and your experience and your insights and that kind of thing. Where do you want them to go?
So they can, if they want to, they can go to my website and take that quiz and see how they're doing on their intuition. And then
Mhm.
once they take the quiz and get their score, then they can, if they want to, they can follow through with that challenge. It's just a simple 5-day challenge that they can do to help themselves move through that framework so they can strengthen that intuition. So that's on my website. So womanawareandprepared.com/quiz.
Okay.
And then I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. So Instagram is the same, just Women Aware and Prepared. And then LinkedIn is my name, Mandi Pratt. So yeah, that's where they can find me. I'd love to hear from them and hear what was most helpful or whatever they want to chat about.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mandy, thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing with us your experiences and your wisdom and just being willing to reach out to the viewers and the listeners on Phoenix and Flame. Thank you, Mandy, so much.
Thank you for having me and for all that you do for others, Dana.
Oh, thank you so much. Listeners, viewers, I know you think, oh my gosh, I know the perfect person that needs to hear what Mandy has to say. Take this episode and copy and paste the link and text and email, post it on your favorite social media sites, get it out there so we can show people you're not alone. Help us grow the Phoenix and Flame community. I hope your day has been great. I hope the rest of it is fantastic. I'm Dana on Phoenix and Flame.